You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 530 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. That song you were hearing right now is, of course, Leave the Lights On from our good friends in Passafire. You can check those guys out anywhere you get your music. And today, gonna do a little bit of everything. It is Sunday morning as I'm recording this, and we're gonna have some thoughts about the NHL All-Star Game, as well as the skills competition. We're gonna be talking about Chris Kreider's performance in all of the above. And we're also going to have an update on the Women's Hockey Olympics, as well as take a look at the Hartford Wolf Pack. And finally, an important update on the KHL and thus Vitali Kravtsov. It's at least possible that he could be at least eligible to return to the Rangers a little bit sooner than predicted. So like I said, there is a lot to get to here. And I want to start with Friday's skills competition, which I enjoyed. You know, obviously with the All-Star Game, I know there's a lot of people who look at it and say, well, it's not real hockey, it's this and it's that. And look, 82 games in the regular season, that's a lot to get through if you're a fan of any one of these teams. So I think there are certain hockey fans that probably just take a quick breather from hockey. But if you're like me and you just can't get enough NHL, then I think this was something that you could probably tune in and enjoy. You know, the skills competition was a lot of fun. I thought the All-Star Game was a lot of fun. Yeah, I know it's not real hockey. There's no hitting. There's no defense being played. Everybody's kind of going at half speed, but for what it is, which is the collection of the greatest players around the world, I think it was still a lot of fun. So I'll just offer a couple of quick thoughts here on the skills competition. The only thing I wanted to mention is I think the NHL would probably do well to try to speed things up a little bit. I don't think that the skills competition has to be 2.5 hours. I think you could probably tighten that up a little bit and get it down to 2 hours. That is kind of a lot. And, you know, obviously the coverage starts and you got to do the national anthem, so I get that, both national anthems. But, you know, coverage starts at 7:30. Nothing actually happened. None of the competitions actually began until 7:47. So that's 17 minutes of waiting for this thing to start, which again, you know, you're trying to loop in new fans. People don't always have the longest attention span these days. I include myself in that as well. You got to hit the ground running here. You know, as soon as it starts, something needs to be happening. There needs to be some action. But they eventually got everything underway there with the fastest skater, and that was the lone event that the Lone Ranger got to participate in, and that was Chris Kreider. He actually went first in the fastest skater competition, clocked in at 13.664 seconds, and he ends up, like I said, in third place. Adrian Kempe was after Chris Kreider, and he got 13.585 seconds, so right away, Kreider was not going to be winning the event, and Jordan Kyrou ends up getting the win with 13.550 seconds, but Chris Kreider comes in third place there, not too shabby. I believe there were 8 participants in that event, including Connor McDavid, who I think had won it 3 times in the past, but he doesn't win it this time. Jordan Kyrou gets the win, and Chris Kreider comes in third place. An event that I also liked was right after this. It was Save Streak, and let me just say, look, I know Cam Talbot is not like a Ranger legend. He's not going to have his number put up into the Madison Square Garden rafters the way that Henrik Lundqvist did, to put it very mildly, but he was here for 2 years. He was a good Ranger while he was here. He did a great job in the absence of Henrik Lundqvist when Lundqvist had to miss a spell of the season due to an injury. So I've always liked Cam Talbot, and it was really, really cool to see him make his first All-Star game at the age of 34. He was wearing a mic for this Save Streak competition, and basically what this was you had basically 4 tag teams. You know, the 2 goalies from all 4 divisions got to face, you know, shooters from the other divisions, and the winners would be the tandem of goalies that came up with the most consecutive saves in a row, you know, facing these skaters one-on-one in shootout format. And you had Cam Talbot and you had UC Saros teaming up for the Central Division, and they end up coming in second place. They got 5 consecutive saves. They actually stopped 7 out of 9 overall, but the way that it works, once it gets past 8 shooters, anybody who scores after that, the streak is over and the goalie's run is over. But Vasilevsky and Campbell win this with 9 in a row. I don't know. I like this one for what it was. But the one that I absolutely loved, and it was right after this, and this one, honestly, if you didn't get a chance to see this live, I can't recommend it enough. I don't know if it's on YouTube or not, but I genuinely enjoyed this one. This was called the Fountain Face-Off, and it occurred at the Bellagio Fountains. And this is what I like from the NHL, getting a little creative here, thinking outside the box a little bit. All right, we're in Las Vegas. What can we do here to make this fun and make it unique and make it kind of fit the city that we're in? Well, what you do to make that happen is you put a bunch of players in the middle of the Bellagio Fountains, and you tell them to shoot a puck into 5 different targets. Now, straight in front of them was just a hockey net, and most of them could hit that without any problem whatsoever. It was pretty far out in the middle of the pond there, or whatever it's called, the pool, I guess. So you had to shoot into that. You also had 2 giant circular platforms that the players had to shoot a puck on top of that were to the right and to the left of the hockey net. And then also a little bit closer to them, you had 2 very small circular platforms where you basically just had to lift almost like a saucer pass into one of those. And the way it worked was you had 8 players, and they were all timed, and you had to shoot the puck into at least 4 out of these 5 targets. And once you did, the clock stopped, and the 2 best times would advance to a final competition where they have to hit all 5 targets in the finals. It sounds like a lot, but if you watch this, I think you probably would agree that it was a lot of fun, and it's not nearly as complicated as maybe that just sounded. But yeah, overall, I love this. You end up coming down to Yossi versus Werenski. They had the 2 best times in the opening round. You also had Jocelyn Lamoureux Davidson. She was a member of the United States Olympic hockey team, and she participated in this as well. I believe she came in either 3rd or 4th place, but like I said, Yossi and Werenski had the best times in the opening round, so they faced off in the finals, and then Zach Werenski ended up winning it. But it was really, really cool. I thought it was very unique. It wasn't done live because obviously it would be hard to get these players from the arena over to the Bellagio Fountains, as quickly as they would have needed to. But it was awesome. It was nighttime. It looked really cool. Anybody who's been to Vegas has probably seen this area where it happened, but I thought this was really, really cool. Just really neat to see it fit the theme of Vegas. And like I said, just think outside the box a little bit. And one other event that did this was the 21 and 22 competition. This was the blackjack competition that I was discussing in a previous episode. I was really looking forward to this one. Basically, you had a group of players, and you had a giant board. This was outside the arena, too. I guess it was there on the Vegas Strip. You had a giant board of oversized novelty playing cards, and the players had to shoot the puck at the cards and try to get blackjack out of it. Joe Pavelski ended up winning this one, but it was cool. There was some fun banter between the players. They were having fun with it, and yeah, just very unique and very different, and again, it fit the theme of Vegas very well. And then you had, your standard events. You had accuracy shooting, you had hardest shot, all that good stuff. I'm not going to get into those in too much detail, but I really, really enjoyed the themed events, especially the one that was on the Bellagio Fountains there. And like I said, if you haven't had a chance to see that, I would definitely recommend looking it up. It's just a really cool event and something that I definitely enjoyed. And again, props to the NHL once again for thinking outside the box a little bit here. But we'll continue talking about everything else that I mentioned in the intro in just a second. But first, just want to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Built Bar. I'm sticking to my resolution to eat right thanks to Built Bar. It almost feels like it's not really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. Have you tried the Puffs? If you haven't, you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy, they're not just a protein bar, they are a treat. And they're covered in 100% real chocolate. In fact, all Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate, Puffs included. 100% real chocolate. Low calorie, high protein. Replace your candy bars with these. They are better. A typical candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories. Go to Built.com and scroll down to the macros chart. You will be blown away. High protein, low calorie, high fiber, low carb. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. Mint brownie, coconut almond, and new for this month is white chocolate cookies and cream. They are delicious, and new flavors are coming out all the time. At Built Bar, they are all about taste. They make it taste delicious first, then figure out how to make it healthy. And I don't know how, but they pull it off every single time. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15, and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, just want to thank you guys for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. All right, I want to go ahead and talk about something else real quick that happened in the skills competition, because Chris Kreider scored an awesome goal in the save streak competition. Of course, that was the competition that pitted the goalies against each other, and he goes in shootout format and fakes a shot and just lets the puck slide between the goalie's legs and into the net. One of the most beautiful goals scored in any of the skills competitions, or the All-Star game itself. But that was really cool. As far as the All-Star game, or games, I guess, as it were, basically the way it works, if anybody needs to be caught up with this, the 4 divisions play each other in a tournament. So you get the Metro against the Pacific in one semifinal, and then you get the Atlantic versus the Central in the other semifinal, and then the 2 teams meet in the finals. And what happened was the Metro beat the Pacific 6-4, the Central beat the Atlantic 8-5, and that sets up Metro against Central in the finals, and the Metro wins that 5-3. So Chris Kreider helps the Metro win the All-Star game for whatever that's worth to everybody. But, I don't know. It was, once again, it's not real hockey, quote-unquote, but it is cool to see all the best players in the world competing in the same game on the same rink. For anybody who was invested in this, Claude Giroux ends up winning the MVP. It's still crazy to me to think that if all the chips fall the right way, he could end up being a Ranger as a rental down the stretch here. And when I talked about that in the past, I almost kind of talked myself into it a little bit. But he's the MVP, 3 goals, 1 assist in the 2 games combined, 11 shots on goal, and he was also a +5. Chris Kreider, for his part, in the 2 games that he played, had a goal, 1 assist, 6 shots on goal, actually had a blocked shot, and also a takeaway. So, that's pretty much the long and short of it. The All-Star game is what it is. The way they did it was 2 10-minute periods per game, and it was all 3-on-3, the entire tournament. So basically NHL overtime rules for the entire tourney. But again, for what it's worth, I think it was a good time. I enjoyed watching it. And yeah, I figure we can turn our attention to some other hockey that's going on right now. And that, of course, would be the Olympics. The men's tournament is not yet underway, but for the women's, we've got the United States now standing at 3-0. The U.S. in 3 games has outscored its 3 opponents, which are Finland, Russia, and Switzerland, by a combined score of 18-2. You've also got Canada, now 2-0 in the tournament. They have outscored their 2 opponents by a combined score of 23-2. So obviously the U.S. and Canada looking good. I would imagine coming into the tournament that they were among the favorites, probably the 2 favorites to ultimately win this tournament and get the gold medal. And we're definitely going to keep our focus mostly on the Rangers going forward here. Obviously, the NHL season is going to run somewhat parallel to the Olympics, given the fact that, of course, the NHL was not able to participate in the Olympics this season. That's a bummer, but you look at the U.S. men's hockey roster and Canada as well, and really all the countries. There are some notable players, some guys that were pretty high draft picks in recent seasons, so I still think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I think certainly when you consider the fact that the Olympics only happen once every 4 years, it's worth looking at. We'll talk about it a little bit. And for sure, I'm going to be, watching these games a lot more intently, both the men's and the women's. Once the preliminary rounds are over, I'm sure a lot of you will as well. For the women, their quarterfinals begin on February 11th, and for the men, their preliminaries begin on February 9th. So, like I said, we're going to keep an eye on both of them. By the time it gets to the knockout rounds and, of course, the gold medal game, we're certainly going to at least keep an eye on it. And hopefully the Rangers' schedule just works out in a favorable way that we can keep an eye on both. But like I said in the intro, we're going to, in just a second, turn our attention to the Hartford Wolf Pack, as well as a very important update coming from the KHL that affects Vitali Kravtsov and could also indirectly, or directly, I suppose, affect the Rangers as well, and we will get to all that in just a second. All right, just want to thank everybody for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. All right, I figure this is about as good a time as any to take a quick look at the Hartford Wolf Pack. We do this every now and then on here. It's always good to see how some of the Ranger prospects and depth pieces are doing playing for the Hartford Wolf Pack. The Pack in general have won 5 out of their last 7, They are in second place in the Atlantic Division. Hershey Bears are in first place. The Bears have 52 points. The Wolf Pack has 50 points. The Pack also has 2 games in hand and currently sports a record of 22, 12, and 4. And I have to shout out Johnny Brodzinski here. Obviously, we've seen him play a handful of games with the Rangers over the past couple of seasons here, but he actually just set a new Wolfpack franchise record with a 9-game point streak. He scored a goal just yesterday, and that would be Saturday because I'm recording this on Sunday morning. But he's leading the way offensively for the Wolfpack. He's got 16 goals and 17 assists for a total of 33 points in 29 games. He also leads the team in points despite, once again, having been with the Rangers for a spell this season. He has played in 5 games thus far with the Blue Shirts. And honestly, given the fact that he's a right wing, that has something to do with it. There's part of me that wants to see him, actually get a chance in a somewhat prominent role with the Rangers. I mean, maybe in a top 9 position at least. I know that he has played 5 games with the Rangers so far this season and hasn't had any points, but I think overall he's looked okay and has averaged only 8 minutes and 42 seconds of ice time per night with the Rangers, so obviously it's hard to, really make a big-time impact when you're only on the ice for that amount of time. Look, I get that he's not, some grade A prospect. I get that he's a journeyman. I get that he's 28 years old, all that good stuff. But when you look at the Rangers right now, and another thing, too, is that I don't know that there's anybody on the Rangers that you necessarily want to take out of the lineup, but they're just not getting any offense from really any of their right wingers, and that's especially true when Capo Caco is out of the lineup, as he has been out of the lineup for the past however many games. Alexis Lafreniere, they put him at the right wing sometimes, but he's played the majority of his games on the left wing. So it almost gets to the point where I'm just like, you know what? Screw it. Why not? Just give Johnny Brodzinski a chance. Give him a handful of games with the Rangers at right wing in a top 9 role, and just see if you can't kind of catch lightning in a bottle. We saw that somewhat with Colin Blackwell last season. I realize he tailed off down the stretch and everything, but when you're getting as little offense as the Rangers are out of the right wing position, and you've got this guy who is more than a point per game, 33 points in 29 games in the AHL, it almost gets to a point where it's like, why not? Just give him a chance. And, either way, whether they do this or not, which I honestly, I don't really think that they will, but even if they do, I think the Rangers are still going to be in the market for at least 1, if not 2 right wingers. So, calling up Johnny Brodzinski might only be kind of a temporary solution, but it gets to the point where it's just like, man, why not? Just give it a shot, see if it works, give him a little bit of an opportunity here, even though, once again, he's not somebody that's a huge prospect at this point. I don't think when you're 28, you can really be considered that much of a prospect anymore. It's just one of those things. It's like, why not just try to roll the dice and see what happens here? So we'll see. We'll see what the Rangers end up looking to do there. But either way, Johnny Brodzinski having a heck of a season for himself with the Wolfpack. If you're looking for somebody with a little bit more upside, then maybe Lauri Pahuniemi is your guy. He's got 8 goals and 10 assists, so 18 points in 35 games with the Wolfpack this season. But by all accounts, it sounds like the Rangers do like what they've seen from him thus far. I know he was one of the standouts during rookie camp before the season started this year. He was a 5th-round pick back in 2018, so I suppose he would at least be an option. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of just looking for guys who have a little bit of scoring upside because at the right-wing position, the Rangers are certainly lacking that. I know a lot of people are going to be calling for Morgan Barron to get a little bit more of a run with the Rangers, get a little bit more ice time. He's back with the Wolfpack, at least for the time being. As far as other point leaders, I mean, you've got Anthony Greco is second on the team. He's got 29 points in 34 games. Tanner Fritz has 25 points in 36 games. And Tim Gettinger, who surprisingly has become an absolute beast when it comes to shootouts. Nobody in the AHL can stop this guy in a shootout. But he's got 20 points in 27 games. Again, he's somebody that if he gets called up to the NHL, you figure he's going to be the 4th-line type. But he's shown an ability to put the puck in the net or, contribute offensively, at least with the Hartford Wolfpack. So the Raiders do have some options if they want to call anybody up at any given time. But as we've talked about on here, there is a little bit of a logjam when it comes to the Rangers. There's a lot of guys who are very deserving of being in the Ranger lineup pretty much night in and night out. So it's a good problem to have, and we'll see how the Rangers look to handle it going forward. But it's obviously very encouraging to see the Hartford Wolfpack having such a strong season. It tells you that the Rangers have a good mix of both prospects and also, some guys that are NHL, AHL swingmen, but can contribute at the AHL level and, be ready if the Rangers need them in some kind of a pinch or whatever it might be. And we'll continue talking about the Wolf Pack somewhere down the line here, and we'll probably dive into some of the biggest Ranger prospects. Obviously, Brian Hoffman is really turning some heads with the season that he's having for the OHL's Flint Firebirds. We've talked about him a couple of times in the past here, so we'll do an episode that's dedicated entirely to New York Ranger prospects. So one more thing I want to talk about here before we call it a day today is the situation with the KHL. The KHL has announced that they're just going to dive right into the postseason, and so that means that Vitali Kravtsov, his team is going to be going to the playoffs, but it means that he could be available to the Rangers a little bit sooner than originally expected. And for starters, we'll just kind of get everybody caught up with the season that Kravtsov is having for Tractor. He has skated in 19 games with them this season. He has scored 6 goals and dished out 7 assists. So he's got 13 points in the 19 games. He is also a +4 in his time with Tractor this season. And Tractor will indeed be participating in the playoffs in the KHL. In fact, they lead the Eastern Conference, so I suppose they're going to stay in that position because, like I just mentioned, the KHL has canceled the rest of the regular season, and they'll be diving into the playoffs right after the Olympics have concluded. So you've got Tractor, and again, this is Kravtsov's KHL team. They have won 23 games in regulation. They have 12 overtime wins. They have 3 overtime losses and 12 losses in regulation. That's good for 73 points. And like I said, first place in the Eastern Conference. Now, the Rangers, just like they did last year when they loaned him to Tractor, they have committed to having Kravtsov play out his entire KHL season. So his availability to the Rangers comes down to basically how well Tractor does in the KHL playoffs. If Tractor is knocked out in the first round, and I got to give a shout out to Statboy Steven on Twitter here because he does a great job. He knows all these stats, all these numbers. It's crazy, but he was right on top of this. If Kravtsov's team, Tractor, is knocked out in the first round of the playoffs, then Kravtsov will be available to the Rangers by mid-March. If they go down in the second round, you're looking at late March. If they lose in the third round, you're talking mid-April. And if they win or lose in the finals, he will be available to the Rangers in late April. So either way, he should get back before the Stanley Cup playoffs start. I'm going to do a quick schedule check here. And yeah, the Rangers' last game of the regular season is April 29th at home against the Washington Capitals. So again, depending on how Kravtsov's team fares in the KHL playoffs, it's possible we see him back with the New York Rangers. So basically, if you're of the belief that Vitali Kravtsov, we can let bygones be bygones, everything that happened in the offseason with him not making the team and basically throwing a fit and getting sent back to the KHL, if you're of the belief that we can get by that, and when I say we, obviously I mean the Rangers franchise, not you and me personally, but if you're of the belief that, again, we can just basically have that be water under the bridge, then I suppose the thing to do is to root against Tractor in the KHL playoffs. They lose early and Kravtsov can come back to the Rangers. If you're of the belief that Kravtsov has burned one too many bridges, he's acted up one too many times here with the Rangers, then I suppose you would want Tractor to just keep winning and winning and winning in the playoffs and have Kravtsov not ultimately come back to the Rangers. Because if Kravtsov's team ends up playing in the finals of that league, then I don't know, would the Rangers bring him back over into the NHL and just throw him out there into the Stanley Cup playoffs? That could be a little bit of a dicey proposition, and I'm not sure how well that would go over in the locker room, because if we're aware of, Kravtsov's immaturity and the fact that he basically caused this whole situation, getting himself sent back to the KHL, then you got to believe the players in the Ranger locker room are very well aware of that as well. And I'm not saying that the Rangers front office is completely blameless either, because I think pretty much every party could have handled this situation better than it did. But I think if you're going to bring him back, you would want it to be before the playoffs start so that he can kind of get his feet wet at the NHL level once again and go out there and kind of earn his stripes all over again with the New York Rangers. Because, I don't know how that would sit in that locker room if, you've been through an 82-game regular season and then somebody like Dryden Hunt has to come out of the lineup for Vitali Kravtsov. I'm just using him as an example, but, Hunt, he's a hardworking player. He seems to be pretty well liked in that locker room. I don't know that players would really be on board with that. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this all shakes out. And of course, this could all be a moot point if the Rangers decide that this guy has played his last game as a New York Ranger and he's never going to wear that jersey again. And they decide to, make him the centerpiece or one of the centerpieces of a trade long before Kravtsov's KHL run even comes to an end. They could trade him by the time I'm done recording this episode, for all we know. He's certainly somebody who is on the block and somebody who could be moved at or before the NHL trade deadline in March. So it's a very, very fascinating situation, and one that we'll definitely continue to monitor going forward in the days and weeks to come here. Yeah, not an easy decision, and definitely intrigued by seeing what the Rangers do going forward here with Vitali Kravtsov. But that will pretty much do it for today, guys. Once again, if you'd like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. And definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, at @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that is at @LO_NY_Rangers. Thanks again, guys. I'll see you next time. Thanks for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. In our next episode, which has actually already been recorded, I did this a little bit out of order so that I could talk about the All-Star game and the skills competition today. But for our Tuesday episode, we are going to be continuing our look at the NHL awards and trying to figure out some winners and discussing whether or not any other Rangers should be up for or perhaps even win certain awards. We're going to talk about Gerard Gallant maybe being a Jack Adams Award candidate. We're going to talk about who the Rangers MVP of the season might be so far. And I'm also going to make my early pick for one of my personal favorite awards, and that is the Stephen McDonald Extra Effort Award. We're going to be doing all that in Tuesday's episode. Now make your second listen Locked On NHL. Locked On experts covering the biggest stories around the NHL every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It is free and available wherever you get your podcasts.